scheme, or the thought is that we want to record an entire episode, maybe talking about it at the very least.
Not right now, though.
Yeah, not right now, but like.
Okay. Josh, I don't know if you're in the loop or not, but we were talking fucking doomsday shit right now. That's what we're doing.
Oh man, I'm down for apocalypse. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to be getting into the whole reason we were talking about simulation theory is because I brought up Nick Bostrom, who's the guy that came up with the idea of global existential crisis and a scale by which to measure them.
Okay.
And I don't know. I've got a couple articles and stuff, things that he's written that talk about that we can kind of bounce off of. But yeah, I was just reading. The reason I was asking him about it is I was reading the other day about the asteroid Apophis that escaped the Kuiper Belt, I think like 100,000 years ago, and it's been getting closer and closer into Earth's orbit. I think it makes a pass every few years. And apparently at some point between 2029 and 2036, it'll hit a 5-kilometer wide gravity pocket in between the moon and the Earth, which means it'll be passing in between us and the moon. And how it hits that gravity pocket, it might collide with Earth.
Is it big?
No, it's about a quarter of a mile wide, but it's moving at, I think, an estimated like 200,000 or 300,000 miles an hour.
Holy shit.
So it wouldn't be radial impact, but it would be deep impact, and that could fuck up the tectonic plates, the seabed, all that.
Yeah.
Definitely with that kind of force that I don't know what that would equate to in megatons, but with that kind of force, that would definitely push us into like fucking impact winter or something.
That would be. And see, one of the things I was looking at earlier was talking about like a super tsunami, basically, and one of the ways in which that could happen would be an asteroidal impact, like in the ocean, could cause a massive. And it was also talking about like volcanic islands, like if a volcanic island in the Atlantic Ocean were to collapse and fall into the ocean, that it would cause a tidal wave that could wipe out the entire East Coast.
It depends on fall velocity, and volcanic islands aren't. That's not like improbable, but that's not a lot of distance for something that big to fall.
Well, it's not just the distance, but it's displacement as well. If you have that much
displacement, going to slow it down too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you move. I don't know how much water. A quarter mile of land. I'm talking about just a falling to the ocean. You have to displace that water up or somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. I don't know if it wouldn't reach us, but there's any surrounding islands. It would definitely, because there've been stories of that where like icebergs or big ice shelves upon the ocean and like have these big tidal waves that like hit nearby land. I've heard of that before, but
it would depend on why it's going into the ocean. If it was subduction or something like that, that would be a pretty slow process.
Yeah, little tiny waves. But I think natural disaster is a very interesting concept because really the only people who see it as bad are humans.
Yeah, that's true.
That's exactly how I've always thought of it. That and global warming. It's big. It kills us. Big fucking deal.
Yeah, we all die. It doesn't matter. I mean, the Earth's actually better off, I think, in that sense, unless everything else just goes on as normal. Humans disappear.
Seriously,
we've existed for like what? Like I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's like 1/14 of a second on the biological clock that we use to measure the amount of time that the universe has been in existence.
Yeah, like 14 billion years for the universe since the beginning. 4 billion since Earth created, and we've been around for 200,000 years, if that.
Yeah. It's a blip of time. It's so easy to forget. As people, we think our lives are so fucking important, but it's like.
But see, I think it is. That's where I disagree with you, because I believe the lives of humans are important, and the fact that we have consciousness and we're self-aware, I think, is a very important concept that needs to be explored. And I don't think science really has an answer for it. They're never going to have an answer, because I don't think it's something you can quantify with neurons and all that crap. Maybe that's a different subject entirely, but it's definitely interesting and worth discussion at some point.
Do you, just as a side note, what would, if just say the asteroid never knocked out the dinosaurs, do you guys think they would have developed any similar way to us at all? I mean, they were around.
They did. I mean, I don't think the dinosaurs were knocked out by an asteroid. I think some of them were, but I think a lot of them just evolved into birds and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they estimate that the only dinosaurs that did survive the Chicxulub.
I have no idea how to say it.
That's I can't even think of the language that would be. That's like deep South American. But
Like Incan or Mayan or something like that. I don't know.
yeah, that pronunciation. Anyways, they estimate that there were a lot of avian dinosaurs that did survive that, but it wiped out practically all non-avian dinosaurs.
Yeah. Luke, when you were at RCC, did you, or I guess Aaron, did you ever have Boone Garden?
Yeah.
Oh man, Doc Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing he talked to last night, I had his class. I guess back in 2016, before I graduated. He's doing fine. I mean, he's just doing his thing. I don't know if he's still there or not, but I know he had some responsibilities at the college and was some leader of the science. I don't know, it was some science department or something.
I know he was diagnosed with cancer about a year or two ago. That's why I was asking.
No. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either. But yeah, one thing he mentioned.
He started chemo last time I saw him.
Ooh, that's rough. That is a rough situation. Wait, are we recording, Aaron?
Yeah, we're 6 minutes in.
Oh shoot. Okay. Well, one thing that sorry,
I didn't know we were recording.
Yeah. Well, one thing that Boone Garden said that I liked. I haven't looked at the research of this, but
edit this out because we're using somebody's name.
Fair enough.
Oh yeah. So the guy at RCC,
where he works and what his last name was.
All right.
Josh, you want to go ahead and give everybody his credit score too while you're at it?
Yeah. His Social Security is.
Email him. But the guy whose name shall remain anonymous at a city that I shall not name, a teacher of mine mentioned before that I guess because he was a geologist, that the dinosaurs were already like almost extinct by the time Chicks Club hit or whatever, however you pronounce it. And this was probably inconsequential to the overall extinction of dinosaurs, but I have no idea. I've never looked into it myself.
Doesn't it have something to do with like unable to support because they were such massive, like they had to eat so much that it was just like unable to like I don't know, that we wouldn't be able to support, or the Earth would not be able to support such massive animals in the first place, or something like that.
What do you think, Luke?
I've never heard that before.
I may be wrong.
Well, I have. I've heard that. I've heard that because of the climate they were raised in, it was so warm, and the potential for growth was so much that they could get really big. But see, once the Earth started cooling and climate change, it became really hard for them to sustain such size, and a lot of them died off because they couldn't eat enough. I don't know. Obviously I'm not a paleontologist. I'm not a geologist. I don't study fossils. I don't dig. But I've heard that before. But I think it's just speculation at this point. I mean, we can't really go back and see, unfortunately.
He who shall not be named was a good teacher, though. I can say
absolutely. He was a really good teacher. I liked him.
Octopus.
He was a great teacher. But if an asteroid were to hit Earth, the question is, and this is an interesting point. So we always talk about the end of the world and the apocalypse, but it's not the end of the world. It would just be like possibly the end of the majority of humans. And we see that as a bad thing, but in the grand scheme of things, would it matter?
That's okay.
Josh, you just cut out a lot of work for all of us because you perfectly segued that into what I wanted to be the subject matter for this episode, which was Nick Bostrom's work. Okay, so you brought up the give me a second here. I'm gonna get one of these fucking names wrong. That's how much faith I have in myself. It's what we're working with here. So, like with an asteroid, the question you'd have to ask about assessing the damage, say that it's like a deep impact, what's that movie called? The Australian movie, These Final Hours. Really good movie if you haven't seen it. But anyways, it is estimating, would it cripple society? Would it completely damage society? Would there be any survivors? And that's, I mean, you can look at any type of what we would consider an extinction event and ask yourself that. Do we assess the damage that it does based on how bad off we are afterward, if we survive at all, or if the entire planet?
Well, we have to think about this. Okay, first of all, the size of the impact. So there's 7 billion people, and I think that it depends on where it hits, what damage it does, if there's any, like you said, some kind of global winter that follows with the skies being covered. There's actually some videos on YouTube of simulations of this. They're very interesting to look at because, I don't know, it just depends on what would actually happen. I guess you could look at the different scenarios and decide, if it was a tidal wave, if it was a a deep impact, if it was so much debris that it cooled the Earth significantly for a decade. We don't really know. So, what do you think?
Aaron, you've been staring at your goddamn cell phone. Why don't you chime in here?
Well, I'm not. I'm not completely convinced that we haven't been here before. Like that we don't keep living. Say life is a wheel, Ka is a wheel, if you will. Where like we don't keep getting to a certain point, and maybe not even as technologically advanced as we are now. But I'm not completely convinced that's not something that's happened already, where we've been wiped out by something or whatever. I mean, there's Graham Hancock and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but I've listened to a couple podcasts that they've been on, and Graham Hancock I believe he's a geologist, and he talks about there's a lot of evidence of massive flooding and stuff like that from before that would have wiped out really any evidence that was on the surface of people that were here before. And
Genesis is real.
Well, and look,
did he say that the Jews were God's chosen people?
No,
he's what you're saying at all.
He said it's a secret cabal that is actually planning on taking over the world. But no, it's kind of it's out there for sure. But it's like there's not enough evidence to say it's not a fact either. And I'm going to be bothered if I don't figure out this other gentleman's name. Because he's written a couple good books on it. He's a journalist, and he's written a couple good books about that subject right there. About I'm kind of out of my element at the moment because I haven't researched it enough. But it just I'm not, like I said, I'm not completely convinced there wasn't something before.
Well, there's two things with that. I think it's very important to bring up. One, the conspiracy and I call it a conspiracy because it's. If we had this kind of advanced technology a couple thousand years ago and wiped out, it's a non-falsifiable claim. There's no way we could know that.
Right.
So really, he's just kind of feeding into this mystery element that people like to go into with conspiracies. And two, if there was an event a few thousand years ago that would wipe out, the impact would be less than it is today because today we're so dependent upon technology, internet, electricity, modern things that would, otherwise probably now we're more dependent than they would have been, let's say 5,000 years ago. So if something happened, they would just keep tilling the land, or they'd have stores of food, or something that today the average person would just die. They couldn't survive. They would have no food, have no water. They would have nothing. They would have no way of surviving.
They're not even luxuries or convenience. That's the direction our society's headed in. It's not a convenience anymore. It's a necessity. It's I mean, and you look. I mean, and the temperature and climate change over time, but you've got people living in places like Alaska or like far north Alaska. You've got people living in the Yukon. I know that there's always been settlements in Siberia, but with heat and stuff like that, we're less and less acclimated to extreme temperatures. So you've got people living there now that if something like that were to happen, a massive loss of power or something like that, they would not be able to survive.
No, you're right.
They can stand the cold for short periods of time enough to live there, but they always have a nice warm place to go back to.
Something that always gets me is that our nation is only 3 days away from running out of food. If the trucks stop running, like the grocery stores run out of food, I mean, we all know this. We all work in grocery stores, so they get deliveries 3 or 4 times a week, and if they don't get those, there's not going to be any fucking food on the shelf. And you want to see people get mean, like, let them get hungry. And that's,
A third of this country's obese. I'm going to be just fine.
I think another important thing along the same lines of massive asteroid impact that will destroy technology could be something like an EMP, which is a very real possibility, especially for weapons or giant solar flare. Because imagine if all electronic, let's say in America, everything electronic was completely fried and unusable. We would go from living in the 21st century to living in the 17th century, something like that,
easily,
with no knowledge of how to do anything.
We go farther back than that because a lot of the things that Romans, Greeks, and hell even the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, things that came from those eras that they pioneered that we have our technology based off of. We don't even know what those are.
Mm-mm.
Or at least we don't know how to make or utilize. We'd go back to fucking zero.
Yeah,
True.
we would. Yeah, I think actually, yeah, you're right. It'd be more like a, right around the medieval time, Dark Ages. Essentially, it would be a modern Dark Age.
with bigger guns.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, yeah, it's true. Yeah,
I mean, it's going to break down. Gangs are going to form. I mean, it's going to be rule of the strong again. Honestly, I
freaking
mean,
Mad Max.
we're so wrapped up in protecting people's feelings and shit that we forget that people are fucking like savages. Like, and you get them mad and you get them hungry. Like they're going to do whatever it takes to survive.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
on that note, my prediction is that the 3%ers are going to go down first.
Yeah,
um,
those poor
yeah,
fucks.
I mean, and really, and again, back to what Luke said, I think the more important question here is, not what would happen, but would it really be a bad thing? Would it matter in the grand scheme of things? And I think that's a really important thing to realize because people get so apocalyptic. But like I said, the moment I die, the moment my eyes close, that's it. That's it. That's the end of my world.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter. Does any of it matter?
Problem now, buddy.
Well, I think that goes back to what you said earlier about do we matter? Like, does the fact that we're conscious or and all that, does that really mean anything, or are we just animals that learned how to do all this shit? I mean,
And I'm going to take the position of on that, and I don't know how you guys feel about it. I don't know, Luke, if you're like a nihilistic atheist or whatever, but um, I take the stance that it does matter in the moral sense that our being conscious is very, um, yeah, I think it's important personally.
is
But
it?
in the
Go ahead.
sorry,
Mm, 21st
see,
century.
Brandon, yeah, iPhone 10. Speaking of necessary technology, the iPhone 10, exact same as every iPhone before it, except it has no home button. So hey, moving on up in the world, man.
I was just I don't know. I don't know what iPhone we're on anymore, but I heard that ringtone or whatever that was. I don't know. That freaked me out for a little bit. What's up with that ringtone? It sounds like a
What do you,
fucking pulse.
what do you mean? Oh, that was my vibrate.
Okay, you just had it really up close to the mic then.
You're using a
Well,
vibrator right now. What the hell?
oh yeah, man. I get it. Looking at you two on the screen, I just
It's my
Um,
mustache, I'm sure.
um, but does it matter? Does the end of existence of mankind really matter? Because I don't believe, like, and a lot of the doomsday people, especially Christians, and this really bugs me, being a Christian myself, is that people have this concept that the world's going to end. Well, that's not necessarily true. I don't believe. More like humans might be wiped out, but the world's not going to end.
No, it'll keep going.
Hey guys,
Um,
remember how we talked about earlier? We really weren't going to discuss our own personal opinions and shit, just so we didn't get lumped in with anybody else. And you've already outed me as an atheist and yourself as a Christian.
no, I was speculating that you were nihilistic. I didn't actually, because I don't think you really like that. But yeah,
I've got too much energy to be a nihilist, man.
yeah, okay, we'll cut that part out if you want. Well, I think it adds a little bit of personality to it, especially when it comes to certain topics I'd like to discuss. I think having opposing views.
I'm just joking around, man.
No, I mean, I'm offended. I seriously, I mean, you have really,
Triggered.
really triggered me right now, Luke. I'm
you got triggered, buddy. You got ambushed.
um,
This isn't a safe space for you.
I'm in my own house. I can't even feel safe. What does this world come to? Forget the end of the world. This is it right here.
Well, thought police are on their way. I mean, that's, I don't know. We're talking about end of the world here, not society's fucking problems, I guess. But
Well, they're all related, I think.
they are. I agree with you.
Okay, so how about this? Speaking of end of the world, what do you think about, since we talked about asteroids, which is speculative, of course,
Mhm.
EMP, which is possible, but I think is a real threat, possibly, of nuclear fallout, nuclear war. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, especially with the way things are right now, I don't think that's. I would like to say that people have too much self-preservation to allow that to happen. Just like, for instance, I don't think Kim Jong Un is dumb enough to get into a nuclear dick measuring contest with the U.S., but I, you can't count it out. I mean, especially if you got somebody like him with his mindset that really just doesn't give a damn. I mean, that's something that would be bad.
I think that's an understatement. But I mean, do you think that? And here's the thing. So the Earth is gigantic.
Right.
People don't realize how big the Earth is. People are spread out pretty far.
Right.
Would a nuclear war really spell the end to mankind?
My problem with mutually assured destruction was always I don't feel like third world countries are going to be a target in that scenario. I feel like if the nukes start flying, it's going to be us, it's going to be Russia, it's going to be the UK, the Europe. I think those are the areas that are going to be the most affected. But I'm assuming that South America, Africa, India, places like that. Well, I don't know. India has nuclear capability,
So what you're saying is they're going to destroy the white countries, but not the brown ones. You're
pretty
racist.
much, it's a plot against the white man. If I had to guess,
No, it's equal.
Now we're discussing the real possibility of speaking into the world a nuclear war. Would it be the end of the world for us?
I don't know. Wait until NATO falls, and we'll find out.
Yeah, shit. No kidding.
You'll have your answer real quick.
Yeah, let's find out. I am curious. I think there is a curiosity, and why this subject is so tantalizing is because I think people want to see this stuff happen.
Yeah, I think you're right. Honestly, man, I feel like a lot of people are really fucking unhappy, and like to them, the scenario of the world ending, like everybody thinks they're gonna be the survivor out there on their own, making it happen. But it's like in reality, you're probably gonna be just like everybody, just as fucked as everybody else. But I think a lot of people are just unhappy, and that sounds like a good possibility to them.
Would everyone die?
Yeah, I mean, really though, as sad as that may sound, I mean, there's a lot of fucking people out here that don't have a feeling of purpose or whatever, and it's just like I'm sure to them, something like that would be, I mean, pretty nice. I mean, I can't lie. I've fantasized about like a zombie apocalypse before or something like that. I mean, I just think the idea of being the lone survivor out there, whatever, like making your way through it, like that sound. In a way, it does sound kind of romantic, almost like.
Well, that's exactly what it is, and why I think it's a crock. Not what you're saying, but the whole idea of it is that we don't as a people, we don't really appreciate much anymore. So we need something that much more interesting. I mean, I don't know. I've had the pleasure of being close with a lot of people who are mentally ill, and one of the telltale signs of that is that life being mundane is the worst possible thing to them. Now, that's not always the case, and I can't speak for everybody, but
right.
Life being mundane, life not being exciting enough, that's not good enough. And you start rationalizing reasons as to why that is and what you can do about it. That's why a lot of that's why a lot of really out there bipolar people act nutty all the time, because it's not. Things aren't interesting enough.
Yes, and that sums up about what I was
saying. I'm not generalizing by saying that. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. That's just been my experience.
No, I agree with you. I mean, that sums up what I was trying to say. Very succinctly. It's just I think a lot of people, that to them seems exciting when you compare it to going to work 9 to 5 every day and taking care of your kids and all that bullshit. Like I think a lot of people, I think it's escapism. I think people just like to fantasize about getting away from their life, which, that's another problem in itself, that we don't, make people feel fulfilled or whatever. I mean, I guess it's up to them at the end of the day to feel fulfilled, but,
Luke, who were you? Who was that guy you were talking about with the papers talking about in the world and stuff?
Nick Bostrom.
Oh, that's Nick Bostrom. He's a Swedish philosopher.
Nick Bostrom.
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 Gotcha.
Actually, it might be Bostrom. He's Swedish, so I don't know.
No, it's Bostrom. As a futurist. So.
What do you guys think of like AI and all that? Do you think there's the potential for that to go sideways and fuck us up?
It was an okay movie. I thought Haley Joel Osment was a really good child actor. I'm kind of disappointed that he hasn't panned out to be much more than that.
Well,
Steven Spielberg, he's a tried and true director. He knows what he's doing. I really did like Jude Law's character in that movie, though.
That was a good. That was I actually really enjoyed that movie as well.
That is a good movie. That is a good movie.
I remember watching it as a kid, and for some reason being jarred by when he hits the other android with the lamp. And the fact that there wasn't any blood or gore, like his face just chipped off.
It's kind of like yeah.
that kind of messed me up a little bit. Like I was expecting like really gory violence, and he just fell apart.
But I don't think that and to be the killjoy here, because that is a good movie. By the way, the ending was kind of strange.
We don't need your negativity here.
Yeah, well, I'm about to bring it hard. I really, and I hate to be the people like to think also that the concept of AI taking over, but I really don't think it's a threat for it, and I don't think there ever will be.
I could see that's actually I've said this twice now. That's a good way to segue back into the Nick Bostrom thing. I think that a gray goo, like nano machine type scenario, I think that could get out of control pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Self-replicating miniature robots.
Yeah, right.
That just consume anything they can, any matter they can to provide as fuel, and that being their purpose, just to replicate more and more. Then again, I think people have professionally estimated that and said that it's really unlikely, considering that the only nano machines we've made so far are basically like small cars and very, very small engines, like within like a fraction of a nanometer, which is impressive in its own right. But
yeah.
Okay, so Bostrom has a couple of he's got 4 different categories for what, or classifications rather, for these catastrophes. So there's bangs, whimpers, shrieks, and crunches. Bang and a whimper are, of course, a reference to T.S. Eliot's The Hollow Men. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. So your bang would be your sudden catastrophes, which is where your nanotechnology, what I was just talking about, falls in. That's something very sudden that got out of control really quickly, and now we can't do anything about it. Nuclear war, especially nuclear holocaust, anything malicious. And then your crunches would be what we were talking about earlier. Humanity would survive, but it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory. Like, what was the point of us surviving? We've got nothing now.
Yeah, for sure.
Society as a whole being completely crippled. He uses exhaustion of natural.
Mm-hmm.
Governing system in any way, shape, or form, because you'll have so proper AI, the way that I see it, would have to be able to function thought-wise very, very similar to humans, and that's dangerous because we are by no means perfect, and we really don't think things through that well. This podcast is a good example of that. So have you guys ever read the book I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream?
No, but I've heard of it.
That paints a very dark picture, maybe not the most realistic, but of what a scenario like that would be. You've got this selfish, computer, godlike computer that does see itself as a god, and it's ruined just about all of the planet, and it keeps humans alive for its own entertainment. And that would be your undesirable future. I think stuff like that is the scariest because we continue on, but we don't have really a society anymore. It's just there's no individuality. There's no enjoyment. There's no emotion. It's a future you would not want to live in simply because it doesn't have any of the ideals that we've come to associate living life with.
Yeah. And it was our fourth one as well. Yeah, I'm about to say.
The fourth one was
But wait, there's more.
I'm sorry. I've been drinking. Whimpers would be the gradual decline of our values, or how we define civilization as of right now. That would basically just be, us evolving. Maybe poorly isn't the right word choice, but us evolving in a certain way that we can't come back from over a long enough period of time. Like we maybe not lose consciousness that we have, but we kind of lose cognitive ability over time because we haven't needed it for so long, which is actually kind of realistic considering how dependent we are on computers now.
Yeah.
I don't know how logical it is to say, but I can definitely see it as a possibility that over time we stop learning how to do things, and we don't really have the capacity for them anymore because we haven't needed them for so long. I think the mind could definitely be an extension of the body as far as that goes.
Yeah, I also think that with the massive amount of people on the planet, there's an infinite number of variables that could take place with any of the situations. And I think those are very real possibilities, though I would disagree that I don't think that AI, even a godlike computer, would be malicious.
To deviate very, very quickly from that, I like how I said that I was losing focus because I've been drinking, and the ginger bitch goes and gets a fucking beer.
I got two, actually, just in case, you know.
Glad I'm leading by example.
Thank you. Good old
You stole it from work.
It's funny you say that. I actually got this for free, right? I went to the warehouse and they were giving out beer. I don't even know why. It was just sitting on a float and somebody grabbed one and I said, "Oh, is that free?" And they said, "Yeah." And I went and checked it. It was in date and everything. And I was like, "Why am I getting this?" And he said, "You going to ask questions or you just going to take it home?" And so I took it home.
Baby.
I guess so. I don't know. Used to it was $5 for a case, but they just gave me this for free, so whatever.
Wow.
We can buy a case at wholesaler price if we want to.
Might as well go to Walmart.
Yeah.
Seriously. If anybody listening at home,
I definitely miss the other beer distributor that you currently work for over where I work right now.
Anybody listening at home, go ahead and buy your beer at Walmart. You can get it cheaper than we can. Just saying.
Yeah. Convenience stores are a sham, but if you do go to a convenience store, be sure to buy all of Anheuser-Busch's hot products like Landshark, Natural, Busch products, anything Anheuser-Busch.
Please and thank you.
Shameless plugs.
Speaking of, this is completely off the subject, but did you guys hear that, or Luke, I'm sure you did, about Budweiser falling out of the top 3?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. Not really. I mean,
no, it's not. They've literally never changed the formula of it.
It's not. It's not surprising, but it is. I don't know. It's good. Miller's creeping in, man.
They were considering moving it to Busch Original slot, is what they considered dead brands. But I think Budweiser edged itself out of that just a little bit. I can't sell it for shit on my route, and I literally work in an area that I can best describe as Duck Dynasty by the beach. If people there aren't buying Budweiser, then
who is really? So as far as AI goes, though, I mean, the only way I could see it being bad is if the AI itself views us as the issue, which, I mean, you can't completely say we aren't. I mean, most of the problems on this planet, or global warming, that sort of stuff, is caused by us. I mean, if
you're shill.
Not me, no, never. I wouldn't take money from anybody unless you offer me the right amount. Hint, hint.
Or free beer in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just honestly, I'm not really on the bandwagon. I mean, Joe Rogan always talks about, man, it's so scary, AI. I'm like, no, I don't think, because I think that if an AI, we can all agree, I think that if an AI achieved self-awareness, it would be far more intelligent than a human being would be.
Right.
And in my opinion, that level of intelligence would be beyond being malicious and selfish. But instead, I don't know what it would be seeking, but I don't think it would be malicious.
But if it's self-aware, wouldn't self-preservation be a part of that for itself? I mean, and what if it saw us as, I mean, what if I think, what is this, Terminator, where it's like they were going to shut it down and Skynet said, no, you're not shutting me down?
Self-preservation, do you think that a super powerful computer that could connect with everything around the world, and essentially what it would be able to connect with every other piece of technology, do you think that humans would really be a threat to it?
If we held the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, if we could just unplug it, I mean, and it knew that we could just unplug it, then I could see it seeing it as that. I could see the AI seeing that as an issue.
You guys think that AI would have to have some sort of a learning curve, though, to operate on that wide of a scale?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely from where it's at now.
Yeah, I think so. like I said, you guys need to
I
watch that
mean,
video.
the AI itself, like its own entity, like it would have an actual learning process. It would have to go through to get to that kind of power, and that we couldn't catch it before then.
I think that's a good point. Actually, to be honest with you, I think that is a very valid point to make, because just like humans, if like self-awareness, we're not born with the ability to do what we do. We learn it and we adapt to the environment. And I think that a self-aware computer would, like you say, adapt and learn as it goes along.
But
It would do so at the process of thousands of years of evolution and within minutes
exactly,
or hours.
and that's the
I
thing.
mean,
As soon as it got turned on, it's going to have access to everything that we have. Everything we've learned, all of our accumulated history is going to be boom, just like that, available to it. So I mean, it would need a learning curve, but is it going to be comparable to a learning curve to us, or is it going to be just a couple minutes and it's caught up? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be one of those things where there would be a curve for it, but it's so basically the ideal AI, the way I understand it, which is very fucking little, would be it would operate the way that we do, especially the way that we think, but it would do it at a much faster rate.
Right.
Because I mean, it's all programming and coding. It's designed to be efficient. That's an interesting point though, because I know specifically with organic organisms. You just put a YouTube. What the hell was that?
Okay, now listen. Speaking of this is very primitive, but this is actually an AI program playing Super Mario World and learning it and actually learning how to beat the level. It's adapting and learning as it goes. It dies and learns, so it beats the level. It's very interesting to watch. When you get a chance, it's like 5 minutes. I suggest watching it. It goes in very well what we're talking about.
Well,
it was weird that a YouTube link popped up over your face all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Wasn't it just a week or two ago that the one AI played a Grand Chess Master and it beat him with a move that nobody had ever come up with in all the history of chess? I'm pretty sure that was just.
I haven't seen that.
That was just in the last couple of weeks.
I was in the last couple of weeks. I thought you were talking about Deep Blue or something for a second.
No, I'm pretty sure. Here, I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure in the last couple of weeks, it beat a guy. It beat a Grand Chess Master at chess using like a combination of moves that had never been used before in the entire history of chess.
Well, chess, especially one of those games, it takes a lot of. There's actually something in chess like humans can see many moves ahead, but theoretically, a machine could see 20, 30, like a deep strategy all the way to the end, which humans I don't think are capable of doing. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, Donald Trump is playing 7D chess right now. I mean, So this article is from
he's playing checkers on a hopscotch square.
December.
like with those really big Cracker Barrel checkers.
Yeah. All right, so December 7th, 2017, Google's artificial intelligence sibling DeepMind repurposes Go playing AI to conquer chess and shogi without aid of human knowledge. And so DeepMind beat the world's best chess playing computer program, and it taught itself how to play in under 4 hours.
Well, see, my main question with that is, so a computer wouldn't second guess itself. Like I've only played chess a couple of times, but I've played a lot of different strategy games, and even as far as video games go, I like puzzle games. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But would a computer second guess itself? Because as humans, that's naturally what we do. We want to doubt ourselves when it comes to a decision, regardless of how large a decision it is. A computer wouldn't second guess itself, right? Or at least not in a way that we could perceive it.
At this level, when we have very primitive AI, I think it would. But I think as it develops,
more primitive or more human?
That's a really good question. I think right now our AI is. That's what I'm saying. The AI we have now is going to be very human based. It's not going to be self-aware. But I believe that at some point, the AI will go beyond what a human's capable of, and I don't think at that point it will second guess itself.
Now that kind of brings an interesting question to my mind, though, as far as if it is self-learning, would it have that doubt? I mean, that's kind of curious to me. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, we don't know at this point in time, but if it's teaching itself, I mean, it's going to have all of our knowledge, but who's to say all of our knowledge is actually right? I don't know.
You're asking the wrong question. If okay, so with doubt, with that, is doubt natural? And if so, okay, so artificial intelligence, it's kind of dicey to say, but that's basically advanced, more advanced, but it's replicated human thought process. So is it natural for us to doubt ourselves, or is that just a weird thing that we've started doing? And does an AI actually know that it's intelligent and then it's confident because of that?
Well,
Or is that not even a factor?
One thing about doubt, and I think one thing about doubt is very important, is that we doubt because we fear mistakes. Would a computer program be scared of making a mistake, or does it realize that making a mistake and then learning from it is the only way to truly learn? So, would that be real doubt? I don't know.
I don't think that would apply to the computer, though, because we don't fear mistakes. We fear that other people will find out that we've made a mistake.
I think, yeah, that's a good point.
I don't think a computer, regardless of how well it's programmed, I don't think that would ever come up.
I don't know that much about it.
It doesn't have anybody to show off for, right?
Maybe
how human-like would it be?
I don't know.
That's tough. I mean, God Lord. And okay, so if it's going to be human, is it going to have morality about it?
I mean, that's a whole other subject, man.
There's there's a plethora of scientific communities devoted to just that.
Yeah.
We should get in contact with Elon Musk and get him on here.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to do an interview with us.
We'll get he landed a fuel cell in reverse on what's basically a pallet floating in the ocean. Nothing's impossible with Elon Musk.
I swear.
Yeah, I heard about that.
That dude, part of me wonders if he's not like from the fucking future and just figured out time travel and came back just to help us out. I don't know.
No, he's not. He's one of those rare people that's gifted enough to look at a situation and think, how can I make that better? And then find a way to do it.
And actually do it.
Yeah, inventors and visionaries are one thing, but it's completely different for somebody to look at something we already have and just turn it on its head and make it work, no less.
That, and he has money. I mean, that's a big deal too.
He's got a lot of money.
How did he? Where did he come from? I never heard of him for the last couple of years.
He's from South Africa. I think he's an American citizen now, but
yeah. He just popped up on my radar within the last 2 or 3 years, maybe, and it's like I feel like I would have heard of. I mean, I'm not saying he's from the future. I was just joking, but I never heard of him before the last couple of years. What did he?
I thought you were dead serious, Aaron.
Let's see. It says his net worth is $21 billion as of 2018.
How is somebody that smart not the richest man on the earth? Maybe he's just not that interested in making money, but.
Well, I'm sure.
You see what Jeff Bezos is worth and what he pays employees? He's clearly smarter than Elon Musk.
$105 billion. Who the fuck needs that kind of money? Did you guys see last week or earlier this week, I saw an article where 81% of the wealth generated last year went into the hands of the top 1%?
Oh, here we go, Bernie Sanders.
I'm not going all socialist, but I'm just saying, like, why are we making all this fucking money for rich people? Like, that's what I want to know.
Because they're smart. They're up there for they're smart.
Because it's human nature to look at numbers and think to yourself, what can I do to make that number bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just as many.
They don't know what to do with all that money. And the scary thing is that most of them fucking liquid.
It's the globalists.
The globalists. They're interdimensional child molesters, folks. They're here for your children. They are going to take their souls.
Child molester, pedophiles, vampires from the ninth dimension.
Now, speaking of catastrophes, don't worry about Katrina. We're going to find her. What do you guys think of all the massive weather events and shit that we've been having going on?
It's normal, dude. I don't see. There's no. Again, it's another human thing to want to seek patterns and stuff. I don't think that. And we could talk about geoengineering and weather control all you want, but I think that big hurricanes, especially in a warming climate we have right now, be it human or not, is natural. And we've had bigger hurricanes in the past. I don't see it as a significant event.
That's the answer to so many questions that a lot of people ask now, and they're not stupid for asking these questions. But you just, if you think about it for a few minutes, you'll have one very simple answer. So, people act like, and especially the media and just people, that the most recent presidential election, it seems like everybody's so politically opinionated and everybody's getting into political arguments now, and it's the most polarizing election ever. No, it's the most recent election that we've had that heavy of an internet following. That type of conflict and opinionated, just people being opinionated like that, has always been a thing. But so look at Facebook. Facebook's not even cool anymore, and that's because so many people are using it.
Mm-hmm.
It's social media, especially with the internet, and everybody has a smartphone now. We're just noticing it more because we have wider access to it. It's always been there.
Yeah, I think, and one thing I was talking to Jared, the other beer guy. Have you talked to Jared recently, Luke?
I talk to him on the phone like once or twice a week.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to him the other day, and one thing I mentioned to him was that people, especially, again, religious groups, are saying the world is going on to crap. We're getting worse and worse. But I don't think that's the case because, like you said, with the huge internet and social media, that we're becoming more aware of things.
Right.
That's always been there.
It seems like things have gone in a different direction, or things have become a bit more extreme, but that's really not the case. It's just you're now noticing that more people are active about something. You're now noticing that there's all these different weather phenomena, and a lot of that stuff too it's cycles. And I don't know if it's just my knowledge of meteorology, but there's weather phenomena that happen all over the planet all the time that only come around every couple of years.
Right.
And when it does happen in the U.S., it's a bigger and bigger thing depending on where we're at with our access to media.
Do you guys?
And now everybody's got it in their pocket all the time.
Do you give any credence to which we all know global warming is just a plot by the liberals, but do you guys give any credence to the fact that the Earth is heating up? That I've heard that the oceans are getting warmer, and that's why we're seeing bigger hurricanes and stuff like that.
It's not a question. The question is whether humans are implicated as big as they say we are. That's the question. Of course, we're in a warming cycle. That's what the Earth does. It's a natural process. But whether or not we're affecting the Earth as much as they say we are, and trying to get carbon tax and all that crap, that's really a completely different discussion. But I think the Earth is warming. It has been for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you think that
it's in this industry in general? I mean, I think we haven't had enough time to really create a measurement system to see how bad things are.
No, not nearly.
I think that our industry, especially going back to the industrial revolutions, that spike was probably a lot for the environment to handle at a time, or at the time. But I don't know. I'm not going to say things will plateau. I don't know. It's kind of hard to measure what our impact is of that. I definitely think that industry has something to do with it, but I don't know how big of a deal it is.
Well,
yeah,
I'm not smart enough to try to speculate on it.
And that's something when they always say this was the hottest year in recorded history, I'm sitting there thinking, well, how long have you been recording weather? I mean, how many thousands of years were you not recording weather before all this? And I'm not saying, I mean, I know obviously, we're not helping the situation, but I always wonder, if this isn't part of some natural process that the Earth goes through every couple thousand years. I mean, we all know ice ages are a thing, and
it is. That's one thing.
Different from what I understand is the depletion of the ozone layer. But I mean, if you look back at when people like Eric the Red were writing about what they perceived as climate change at the time, they didn't even know there was a fucking ozone layer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But we actually can track, Aaron, to kind of follow up using things like core samples and studying, I guess, dirt and things from hundreds of years ago. We can actually track different temperatures throughout the last 1,000 years, and we can see a trend of warming, cooling. That's a micro. Then you have a macro scale of I think it's every, I don't know how many thousand years that the Earth actually warms up and cools down to an ice age, and vice versa.
I didn't realize there was a mini ice age, in the 1800s or something like that?
16th century, I think.
Yeah. And so I didn't realize there was one that recently. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that's good or bad or that's what it is. I'm just I know, like I said earlier, I know we are causing some of this, but I still can't help but wonder how much of this is natural. And I'm not a climate change denier. I'm just, I try to look at it from a realistic standpoint, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And the Earth is huge. The Earth is gigantic. And are we putting a lot of stuff in the atmosphere? Sure. CO2 is eaten by plants, stuff like what is it? Methane is pretty deadly. It can be, but like Luke said, I mean, as far as like data, we need at least another like 50 years or 100 years to really compile accurate scientific data to determine whether or not humans are the cause. If we're helping, if we're hurting, we don't know. There's no way to know. It's not possible to know.
Right.
And a lot of it's just fear mongering and like the whole Paris deal. I'm not trying to get political, but that was a crapshoot, and Trump stepped out of that. It was probably the best decision I think he made in that sense, because it's just, and it's the globalists trying to get the carbon tax and take the money from the poor. Essentially what it is, and I agree with that. It's not a conspiracy.
I think you had a terrible argument for why he did it. It's one of those things like the horseshoe theory kind of thing. Like, you made the right decision, but the reason you made that decision isn't why a lot of people would have made it.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying the fact that he made it for, because America's number one or whatever. But I think that it can be good regardless if he meant it to be good for the way he thought it. And I think that those decisions two effects can essentially happen from the same decision, regardless if he meant it to or not. And I think that not doing it was a great idea. And who knows? Maybe he just did it because he's egocentric. I don't know. Who knows? What do you think, Luke?
That if we really want to get to the bottom of this, you should definitely vote Chelsea Manning for U.S. Senate. That's what I think. Also, I think whites should be rounded up. I think they should be rounded up and placed in FEMA camps.
Who?
Whites.
Whites? I can agree
whitey.
with that. Fucking white people. They ruin everything.
Yeah, no, I hate them.
Now, something you brought up earlier, Josh, that I think is cool, or not cool, but that's something that honestly scares me, is an EMP blast. But going away from that, what about like a solar flare? Well,
that's what I mentioned too.
That would be over before we knew it was coming.
Uh-huh. I mean, do you guys? I've obviously there's TV shows and all that shit talking about this, but I've read, or watched and seen stuff talking about like a massive solar flare would have the same type of effect. It could knock out our electrical grid and all that shit.
Yeah, I mean that's what I meant. Yeah, exactly. I mean it could, but I don't know. I think we have defenses against that. Like the magnetic field we have. I don't know if it'd be that. I don't know if it'd be possible to have one that big. I mean it's possible, but I don't know.
That's just something that kind of freaks me out a little bit. I mean, I just the thought of all of our, because I mean, as most people know, our electrical grid is pretty unstable. It's in this country, and that's here. I mean, imagine the rest of the world. But it's like that. If that got knocked out, man, that would mess a lot of stuff up. And
yeah, that's what we're talking about. I mean, it would completely regress us, and I think that's probably the biggest catastrophe, really, because I think a natural disaster, like something that hits really hard, like a tsunami, it destroys an area, sure, but imagine knocking out the entire Earth's like electrical system and frying all the things. It would just be complete chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the worst thing that could happen right now, besides being obliterated by an asteroid or attacked by aliens. Whatever.
Yeah, aliens would not be good. I don't know that. I don't know that I believe in aliens. I mean, I'd like to. I want them to be real, but I
or we can get really deep into it and say, catastrophe-wise, that the only things that were smart enough to travel across the universe were actually AI. So we have AI aliens. There you go.
Like the ones from that movie, or
which one? Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Ignore me. I was making a callback to what we were talking about earlier. We're getting really meta right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to compile my thoughts, but no, I don't know. As far as catastrophe goes, I think, like you said, EMP blast would be the worst possible thing. Alien abduction, global warming, I can't imagine anything else would be really that catastrophic.
What about something like world crop failure? Like what's that movie with Matthew McConaughey? Fucking
Oh, mud. Yeah,
Interstellar.
man, that'd be freaky.
No, Interstellar.
Dallas Buyers Club. What if that happened to the whole world?
Oh shit! Everybody got
Man,
AIDS.
imagine if something like that had actually happened.
But I'm saying, what if our the Earth stopped supporting our crops? I mean, what if we couldn't grow? What if we had some massive failure in that system where the only thing we could grow is corn or something along those lines, where it just won't support us growing anything else?
Well, better be vegan, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Plant-based diet.
Yes, baby. But I think that's good. I think we've been about an hour now, so I think we have a pretty good conversation.
Hell yeah.
I
55,
think
12.
we've kind of stretched this out. I think the catastrophe, but I think that really it is important, but it is definitely. I mean, would it matter? And that's really the question I'd like to get to at some point down the line. Is if human extinction is really a bad thing?
Well, I guess that depends on whether or not you think we're worth saving.
Yeah, and that's like I said, I think that's beyond the scope of my thinking. There's no way I can really. I have a few ideas, but there's I'm not smart enough to develop an argument for or against it right now.
I mean, I hate to sound like a hippie, but I feel like like the small relationships we have in this life is what counts, and so it's like it depends. Like I want to have kids someday, so I want to see them go into a future that is gonna support them living. Like I don't want them to inherit a terrible world.
No.
Oh, Luke, could you put your headphones back in?
What?
Could you put your headphones back in? Getting feedback.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
That's all good.
But no, guys, I think that's it for me tonight. I got a few things I got to do. But I think we had a really good conversation. So, are you going to edit this up?
Yeah. I just got to sit down and do it. I got sick last week and all that shit. It's been kind of rough.